Okay. Hello, everyone. In this morning's episode, I would like to start off by sharing a quote from Guru Padmasambhava, this man from Tibetan Buddhism, this sage bodhisattva. Guru Padmasambhava says, if you want to know your past life, look into your present condition. If you want to know your future life, look at your present actions. Okay, sorry guys. To continue, pretty much Guru Padmasambhava is saying that if you want to know a sort of, through a storified timeline of your own existence, pretty much you want to know how your energy has been expressive before, Guru Padmasambhava is saying look at your present conditions. And now the present condition is where the person is left. You know, it's a sort of analysis of reality from the effect of karma. You know, when we have a past, we are actually the effect of it. That means it's like the person causes something and then the next day they experience it. They become, you can say, they set into motion a movement, an echo into the cosmos. But your present actions, they are kind of like the new signals the person is receiving. That means being is the result of karma, doing is the cause of it. And so we have done things and we are now being things. And so Guru Padmasambhava says, now in the present, be aware of how you are again doing things to be things. It's this strange cycle where individual forms seem to be creating more of a destiny for themselves, more continuity to the storyline, by not being complete. You know, sometimes I wonder, what if Earth, from a theological angle, Earth was actually made in heaven? Where was Earth made? Where did God make everything? You know, it's like being a kid and being in a religious environment and getting the notion that God is moving the chess pieces. And what this notion is not language based. It's experience based. Sometimes I feel, what is this idea of divinity that is in this world? And how I notice it, it's as if the prophets in history were the conscious thoughts, and imagine everything is made in heaven, which is God's mind. Now, when I say the word God, it's like many stories want to link to it, but when you realize it is an inconceivable idea, that is when you have truly seen God. When you realize the unknown has intelligent administration and authority regardless of how the known moves in certain spaces and states of mind. So if we were, I remember giving a talk called "Are We the Imagination of God?" In that talk I was wondering that, again, what if we are thoughts of the universal mind? That means my brain generates or picks up or receives uh, or tunes into various different types of ideology throughout the day. But I am not conscious of all ideology. It's as if certain ideologies have more of a priority than the other, in accordance to their realism and consequence. So let us say that wisdom has been, in some sense, trying to attain harmonious journeying ability in this realm. And those who saw the universe intelligent, not just man as intelligent, then you can communicate to it. The me is a microcosmic view noticing the macrocosm, noticing a macrocosmic system. The universe is so much bigger than us that I can't even fathom how we can fathom it, to even measure it specifically. We measure certain locations accessible, but the true origins of this universal sector, it can be only received. That means you can experientially remember, not conceptually. What does that mean? Imagine 20,000 years ago, a hypothetical person had the experience of space. That means you were just mind. You were uncontained space. So if you were, let's say your intelligence was moving through space, now it's moving through matter. Now what is moving through matter is also noticing that the mind is intelligently moving through space. So when matter realizes space is moving, matter is no longer matter. You know, right now the species is not ready, and we don't even have a civilization to be that proud of, to be honest. It's not an advanced civilization yet. So this notion of, let us say, a more macrocosmic picture becoming localized, that human beings begin feeling like they are galactic. It would first occur with human beings getting familiar as minds. When you get to know someone, you get to know their mind first, then the dance continues. So I feel if there was to be extraterrestrial contact, it wouldn't be physical. Physical extraterrestrial contact may be the second stage or the third stage. The first stage is throwing something. That means, what does that mean? That means, imagine right now we were an advanced humanity, and like there was a tribal civilization or something. Do you know what I mean? We just because we know. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's like, in the future, imagine human beings have a different form, and you want to time travel back to speak to your ancestors, but you know that it's going to freak your ancestors out. So the person leaves a trail. So I feel what's going to happen is that before extraterrestrial contact, there's going to be kind of like an extraterrestrial trail. That means human beings are just going to close their eyes, become very antenna-like, and receive the unfamiliar in the moment. So I would say you got to think about it, because imagine right now this we were an advanced human species again, and we are trying to make contact with a civilization that doesn't realize we're like aliens to them. You know, they don't even see us. So we would first try to see how do they feel if we're invisibly around them. Do you know? Then how would they feel if they notice the mind beyond the framework? I feel a lot of reasons why, if there was even the potential for extraterrestrial contact, why it's not occurring visibly, you know, is because people are freaking out over bacteria right now. We are freaking out over our conceived notions of what's going to happen after we die. There's so many things that right now we're scared of, that it's like to see an extraterrestrial would be unnecessary at this point. It's like it's like teaching extraterrestrial contact is like teaching arithmetic to a species that doesn't know how to count yet. So before contact, there's going to be messages in a bottle sent. And there has been a sign of this, that human beings, either they have, you see, spirituality usually has two motivations. Pretty much we're either playing visible games or just invisibly being here. I feel we have to start living as minds. Rather than bodies which through language and a certain ideological permission move themselves as a mind, it becomes the other way around, where the mind uses language to move the body rather than the body using language to comprehend how the mind is moving it. You know? Ludwig Wittgenstein says the limits of my language are the limits of my world. What more of a statement do we need after hearing that? There is something about language that it is made, you can say, partially with the involvement of the free will. Anything an identified archetypal based free will does, it's like, you can say, just like a person manufactures like a glass cup company, the thoughts, the archetypes, the intentions and visions generated out of the space of mind, they're also designed. What that means is the idea of yourself has unknown utility. So this could imply, for example, if the identity wanted to access a macrocosmic archetype, it would have to see itself. So, you know, there's one view where that, let's say, let's take this, I don't know why I feel this metaphor is, this extraterrestrial contact metaphor fits in. One option, pure visible contact. You know, the extraterrestrial lands on Earth, shakes hand with some dude, or, you know, some lady, some just shakes hands with a human being. You know, imagine we're scared to shake hands with the alien, so we send an android robot to shake the hand of the alien. You know, and to take test samples while it shakes the hand of the alien. So one option is the visible contact, where you're a visible being, and there's another, it's rather than the invisible other. Extraterrestrial contact would be the invisible other has become visible. So it is the visible other. Now let us say there's a way where, because you're a multidimensional being, so there is a visible side and an invisible side. So we can expect, before visible contact again, us living or co-creating as minds common reality. That means when you speak to a person, you're building a third reality. You're literally building a world where both people are seeing similar things in. So if we are to do this with an extraterrestrial, it would be same, but it would be on a mind level. Now imagine the extraterrestrials that want to contact us, they don't have mouths. Can you imagine? Imagine they don't have mouths, they can't speak. You know? At that point, we would have to make contact as minds. That means imagine if visible alien came down to Earth, but it had no mouth. It didn't use sound. So we would, on that point, even if the alien was visible, we still couldn't, our contact would have to be invisible. It would have to require the atmosphere of mind, the sensitivity of attention to life design, to the designs of life. There's an incredible geometric wealth to this world. And really, here's the cool thing. In your outer realms, you can physically use technology. In your inner realms, you are non-physically using language, and it's by the whim of an attention, by the whim of your attention. So if you are a self in a world, if the self makes itself equal to the world, it would stop experiencing itself as a person. You know, it's sometimes I ask myself, why is the universe here? It's like, oh my God, do I owe the universe money? Why is it here in front? And you see, no, all that we owe the universe is our participation in the event. To selflessly be the ultimate self. In the Bhagavad Gita, it shares pretty much an algorithm where it says the person who has, let's say, an egoic construct, let's say I think I'm Superman right now. Do you know? Superman has karma, technically, according to the Bhagavad Gita. But if Superman was punching the villain, imagine Superman punching a villain, okay? So if Superman punched the villain and Superman was selfless, that means to himself he wasn't Superman, he was just the presence of the moment, then the Bhagavad Gita says that action has no karma. So that moment where Superman was beating the villain, people were like, all right, he's like Superman and the villain are destroying half the city, but it's okay, he's doing it selflessly. You know, he's thinking of us first in his mind, even though he's destroying our home. I sometimes think if we have time travel, like become actualized, then it's gonna make paying for rent so difficult. It's gonna make it super easy actually, but it's gonna but it makes it for the one who's getting rent difficult, you know? You know, the cosmos is here not to be just seen as an artwork that has no relevance to the core intelligence of the being. You know, there was something about ancient mysticism which I am fond of ancient texts, but I am not fond of all cultural programs alive during during whatever knowledge comes. That means it's like, think about it this way. The light bulb could have been invented during Edison's time, or imagine it passed Edison and in the 1980s somebody suddenly made a light bulb, imagine. So do you see, so that invention is like on a design level is separate from the event of history where there's a certain cultural program engaging it. You see, we feel thoughts are us. That's why we say the person had a thought. Do you know? Or we say I am a thought. But all that sentence means is just language being shouted in the void. beliefs and disbeliefs don't get us far. The me has access to a macrocosmic feedback system because the me requires to first identify a macrocosmic system, then see itself as separate. You first need to notice your world, then separate yourself from it. That means there can be no self without a world. Because in order to do something, there needs to be a condition. There needs to be a circumstance to the moment. You know, Alan Watts, I believe he shared a Zen koan in one of his talks where he said, "Who were you before your parents were born?" I feel that stress, depression are hoaxes. I feel the species doesn't know its mind yet. We have a lot of ideas on objects. You know, we are technically being our minds in every moment. But to know what the mind is trying to know that which is defining the location. So if your sense of self is you, I mean, here's where people divide. It took me, I think it was up till 2011, where I hadn't noticed still that there was the inner realms. That means I hadn't noticed that I can notice myself noticing in the moment attributelessly as the whole moment. You know, there is a grand emptiness that will find us all. Even though Guru Padmasambhava says to know your past life, look at your present conditions. To know your future lives, look at your present actions. The action is new. The action is novelty. It's like we're an antenna experiencing two dimensions. One dimension where it is endlessly receiving, and one dimension where it's endlessly expressing. And when we even correlate uh, the brain as if there's two different brain hemispheres, and these brain hemispheres, it seems like one, there's the analytical side, the left side of the brain, and then there's, we say, the creative side. The right side of the brain. But what does that mean, creative analytical? Creative means it is seeing interconnectivity with everything. The analytical process is the opposite of interconnectivity. You're actually disconnecting various points to stabilize meaning. That means in order to be very certain that we are an object, we have to be an object. That means it's like, because there's an objective, it's like I don't know how long it will take for a species to wake up from the slumber of its manifestation into its collective fieldhood. I don't know how long it takes. So different species, different civilizations, you can say, have had different approaches. We have taken an artificial one. What that means is something made us lift our nose from the dirt, as if like evolutionary wise. What caused the ape to stand up was it was like walking on its two legs, and it was like, oh my god, I've had it with this smell. And the ape stood up, and suddenly it breathed in a new fresh air. So I could say literally the ape standing on its two legs was similar to going to outer space. A totally new atmosphere of perception. There's something I would like to read for you. It's from the poetry of a poet named Sadi from, like, I don't know, 800 years ago. Sadi, this Persian poet, says human beings are members of a whole. WHOLE, members of a whole. In creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. This poet Sadi also says, have patience. All things are difficult before they become easy. So many ways to engage the moment. I feel a person should study their micro movements and their micro stillness and their macro movement and their stillness. The stillness is the unitary dimension. What is connecting all of knowledge is the unknown. The unknown is the trunk that all the branches of knowledge extend from. And this unknown, it's pretty much the unknown. The trunk of the tree is sandwiched between different roots, between the branches and the roots. You know, I really wonder about this. If we were to take a tree, and I don't know if anybody's ever tried this. Somebody maybe Google this, but like I'm right now looking at a tree in my yard, and I'm like, what if I took out this tree, you know? Imagine, let's say you had some sort of power of nature, and you lifted this tree into the air, and you flipped it around, and you put the branches in the soil and the roots outside. And then the question comes, is the tree in some way intelligent enough to change, you know? I honestly feel we are, maybe the individual is being given way too much credit. It could be that light is actually geometrical information and it activates phenomena. Because I think about everything I have seen in this life has been due to light. And I'm thinking, what if it is this relationship of light and darkness, fullness and absence, that is generating the multidimensionality and the journeyer? This may be a very fascinating concept, but it could be macrocosmic conditions I mean, it has to be levels, guys. It's a fractal. Because the same way a human being looks at ants, you can totally see that sometimes when the person feels they're being watched, this world is way more animate. Way more animate. Your attention is not just object-based and it's not subject-based. That means if our species was under a mental alien invasion, it's like, you think people would be ready? It's like foil sales will go high up, they will increase. But it's not going to help, because really the only thing that I've noticed, this is like so far, all the years I've been around here in this plane. Without trust, the new dimensions don't open up. And for trust, one may require equality. One may require a selflessness to be equal to all things. Because if you valued everything as nothing, when you felt like nothing, you can say that's ultimate oneness with everything. And this is the choice that our species has. Do we want to glorify the void? Or do we want to glorify the stuff in the room, or do we want to glorify just the space, Because I could totally not suffer as an individual by dismantling the ideological story and be like, I'm not a human being right now, I'm the whole cosmos. Non-duality is a permission, but I'm telling you, we are not here. This may sound strange. We have built a civilization on the notion of free will, but I'm telling you, when it comes to nature, it's a symbiosis. It is coexistence. And your mind, there will come a time where it will experience co-experience, where you will realize that this body is in the administration of the universal sector. So technically, I feel this physical existence of mine is like a rent-a-car from. It's like rent-a-karma. I feel this body is something rented to me, something just given to me by the universal sector's potential. Because if we want a truth, and if the world is multidimensional, then we can't want a truth based on one dimension. So that means no singular dimension has ultimate certainty when there's more dimensions, unless the witness is found. The witness is not emptiness. Many people think it is. Many people just get to the non-dual state and they feel that's ultimate. It could be. You can linger, but if the person has dwelled in the non-dual and still feels there's a missing piece, I will tell you that missing piece is because you have not looked at the pieces in front of your eyes. There is an honor of the outer realms and there's the honor of the inner realms. The honor of the inner realms is the mind stays honest and doesn't forget the simplicity that has become its complexity today. In regards to the outer realms, the honor is just duty. It's literally the outer realms battlefield for a singular being, Inner realms, multidimensional playground for a multidimensional being. And you know, you can say thinking is a conscious dialogue with your moment. There's moments where I can say I feel like I'm speaking, and then there's moments where I just feel the moment is moving. You don't know, it's kind of like writing. When you write a lot, you don't think about the pen in your hand anymore. You know, or when you drive a lot, drive a vehicle, after a while you don't think about the inside of the car. Your attention is just only on the key points of that outside, you know. And it is the case that certain neurological studies have kind of suggested that when the person, so there is the brain, and there is this part of the brain called the amygdala. Now, this amygdala is seen to have, I mean, I don't know the exact term, but if to give you an image, it has way more neural potency. And what that means is like that moment when the person is driving and it's late at night, but they have a long drive and they have to go and they fall asleep, or they're awake and they're still functioning efficiently, that efficiency seems to be attributed to the amygdala. But I am telling you, the brain has been compartmentalized. The brain has been institutionalized. And not in a bad way, but it just has been. What that means is it's like whatever a person feels, it's like the cake has been cut. You know, we have rather than seeing one whole body, which is simplicity's reality, we have seen the complex view of where there's this specific organ, that specific organ, that specific organ. You know, this was one of those great questions in biology, that why is it that the brain, why is it that the brain cells have consciousness? Why are we attributing the consciousness to our brain? Why don't we say our consciousness is also in our liver or in our stomach, in every other organ? Why just the cells in the brain are the unique ones? Do you see what I mean? Like this question. And the reason is I think because it has the most immediate access. Because if you look at the human design, look at your nose. Look at your nose and look at how it's designed to immediately get air to the brain. Do you know? And our eyes are immediately designed to get light. You know, it's like the most important senses. Like you can say the sense, the sort of, what is it? They call it, what's the term? Tactility? Like literally, like the sensation of touch, that's your whole body. But the sensation of hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting are all in the head. Have you noticed? So only one of your senses is full body, the other senses are all on your head. You know? And based on how dangerous the world becomes, we're going to require suits. Right now, we have the whole coronavirus situation. This is just pioneering. This is going to pioneer industries that are going to start making these perfect air chamber suits. Like, it's like, imagine the world's going to get super polluted in a parallel version of Earth. We can imagine this happening. That imagine the world gets so polluted that we can't walk outside. So we have to have suits that are these giant suits, so we feel like we're just standing in them. Do you know? Because Tony Stark technically didn't have to move his arms in the Iron Man suit. Do you know this? That means Tony Stark didn't build the most advanced Iron Man suit. The most advanced Iron Man suit would be Tony Stark drinking tea in the Iron Man suit as the whole Iron Man suit fights and does everything Tony Stark's mind wills. You know? That means I would have rather seen Tony Stark make this bigger Iron Man, not the one where he fights Hulk with, but this bigger Iron Man where it's literally like a chariot. He makes a chariot Iron Man suit where he's just chilling in there. I don't know, like on social media posting stuff while the Iron Man suit is doing everything. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a peculiar design. There is genetical information most immediately visible. Then once processing this genetical information, we are left to wondering, oh my God, evolution made an object into a subject to itself. You know, what magic show is this? You know, I don't. And time is there kind of like taking off its top hat, you know, and bowing to the crowd. There's so many mysteries in this world. After a point, truth doesn't become the game. Truth is the young soul's game. Service is the old soul's game. And there is no young or old soul technically per age. Those are just ways of speech, you know? But what they meant is that a person new to the system is like the young soul, you know? Or there's a term they say, young Jedi, like for those Star Wars fans out there. Right? What does that mean? That means this person is new to realizing the force within all things that the mind wills. Because this was the only fascinating thing for me, is that the mind, technically, we all have telekinesis. You know, we have that ability, but we have it through first moving the cells that are in our hand, you know, that are our hand, and then moving an object. So if I lift up, like, there's this lighter in front of me right now, if I lift up this lighter with my hand and move it to hold it in the air, technically this lighter is levitating from its perceived position, but it's levitating in accordance to the conditions of my hand. So technically it's as if I moved this, I'm levitating, even though I'm holding this lighter in my hand, it's like it's technically levitating, but I had to levitate my hand first before the lighter could levitate. It's a conditional levitation. So if we were to think of an unconditional levitation, the kind in like Star Wars, or there were certain yogis known to have even multiple bodies. But that's for another talk. I'll tell you this, that this notion of levitation meant there's two different approaches. There was this one approach where the person would have a single pointed focus, a single pointedness of mind, and this single pointedness of mind would inevitably reveal everything that is passing through that one point of attention. Do you know? So what that means is, if you look at something long enough, the subjective concept for that thing passes. That means boredom is a sign that the person understood the moment, and now what? You know? So that single pointedness of mind is like they were just pretty much meditating to realize their whole moment, rather than fragmented relationships of the content of the moment. Right now my voice is part of the content of the moment. That's why it can't be the truth. That my physical body is a part of the moment. It's not the whole moment. Do you see? That's part of the truth, that it can't be the truth. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying that it's like the whole moment. So what we have thought was the soul is actually a field. And those people who've seen individualism, that's the mind's magic show before it actually realizes it's the bunny inside the top hat. You know? And I think about it, that how much, like in regards to our inner realms, we should be fearless. But our outer realms, yeah, fear the lava coming down the volcano, you know? So it's very important to notice that self-awareness is a feedback system. We are pretty much the earth, that parts of the earth that separated from it named themselves, now feel we're from the stars. Yeah. It's like the mind is from this, you know what it is? It's like they say the mythological idea of Mother Earth and Father Sky, you know? And what does that mean? That means your mind is from the heavens, but your body is, if you were to look at its sticker, it says made in earth. We are a product of the cosmos. I think this is why there's this whole consumerist dimension to our culture. You know, sometimes I think capitalism should keep continuing, not because there's injustice, but because the illusion is giving people something to do in the void, to seek a truth. That means you can say, for the wise, chaos and order don't dictate the outcome. It's like a living presence of the moment. You know, when will we realize that language was just a finger pointing? That means all this time, people who have been learning things, different teachings throughout the eons, you know, all of it has been fingers pointing to a mirror that was here before you were. So what is put in front of the whole moment, it's like, I'm telling you, your whole moment is even the Yoga Patanjali Sutras kind of suggests this. They say that it's like a glass orb, a glass sphere. And imagine this glass orb rolling over different colored surfaces. It goes on the color blue, the glass orb becomes blue, its reflection becomes blue, but the glass orb has no color. Then the glass orb goes, and think of every birthday candle you've blown being that the glass orb has been blowing the candle. Do you know? The glass world has then rolled on into a new moment, and because we have deep sleep, experientially, there is something like that. So I would say our minds are like this. It's like experience is occurring very spherically, regardless of our biological eyes. That means it's not because of that. Because an argument can be made, it's just our sight. That means just like the person has an alphabet, and then from that alphabet they create words, and then these words are like paint for the inner realm to share. You can also kind of say there's an alphabet of imagery. That means I would say that film, for example, no teacher of mine in I attended Toronto Film School, no teacher of mine ever said this. It's like they were all possessed by the lack of creativity of a corporate culture, you know. But one thing that I really wished the teachers to say, pretty much, guys, they didn't point to the film going on behind the eyes of the director. They didn't treat film as a psychological language, you know. I'm telling you, not all art is free. Freedom really has to do with enough experiencing of attachment and enough experiencing of a detachment to no longer need to systematically be an archetype, be a thought. Because existence has not ended. Technically, existentially, we have been here non-stop. But it's only experientially in regards to the mind's activity that when we sleep and go into deep sleep, like check this out. Let's say there's three major states: the conscious waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. In the conscious waking state, we are an object and simultaneously a subject. That's really what going to the cinema proves. But in the dream state, it's like the existence is still there, the body is asleep in the bed, but the mind hasn't gone to sleep yet. And deep sleep is where both body and mind are asleep. Where it's as if the same way the body became inactive, The body is here, but the experience is absent in the deep sleep state. That creates a gap which makes us feel there is something new. I don't know, guys. It's a language generating machine. It's an antenna endlessly receiving signals. It is identifying everything through names, but that moment where you're about to fall asleep, you're not a name. You're a sight. And so, if we can separate, right now we don't have that much acuity, that much discrimination between our senses. At least, not everybody does. What that means is like we can't separate the smell. Uh, I don't know how to say it. Like it's like when a person eats a food, not everybody can discriminate exactly the taste. I mean, it really depends on how like where the food lands on the person's like taste buds, but like taste bud regions. But like I don't know how to say it, guys. It's like for the body, it's one event. For the mind, it's multiple. For the soul, the unknown is witnessing the known. And once these final levels of contentment are reached, then there is, and for the, I don't know, but in my experience, there is a moment where nothing is wrong, nothing is right. Nature is. And it doesn't mean when I say nothing is right, nothing is wrong, there is no justification. It's as if the mind stops resisting the body. The body stops resisting the mind. The war of eons comes to rest. The antenna is perfectly aligned in an imperfect world. And we evoke, we become the soul of moments on this earth. I want to share with you a chapter from this science fiction novel I've written. It's unpublished and still, it's a giant book, but there's a chapter where it's called The Memory Speaks. And so the main character of my science fiction novel, just see this as a segment of the show, guys. Set in the year 5025, there are 9 parallel dimensions to Earth. There's a character named Rasoul. Human beings have gone through phases of enlightenment rather than phases of animalistic dissension. And the main character, Rasoul, this is a very abstract book where I gave myself complete freedom of all the extreme ideas I've had. When I say extreme, I mean in a scientific context. I've allowed, but in this science fiction novel, Rasool, the main character, it's his first lifetime as a human being, and in his past lifetimes, he was a galaxy. He had the consciousness of a galaxy. And long story short, this is like a chapter in the middle of the book. Not really middle, but like 1/4 into the book, you can say. I don't know if it's 1/4 in the book, but whatever. It's like this chapter. Rasool is sitting on a rock. He wants to enter his Pure Lands. He's got a dream that he has to leave his body. And so he sat on this rock and he's deciding to leave from his individual existence when suddenly a memory of his father visits him. And human beings in this reality live thousands of years, but his father has passed away, so Rasool has lived a long life. Now what happens is that Rasool remembers a moment where his father, if I remember correctly, his father is picking him up from the school, and it's in this Chevy where the windows are made of this technology, this light field kind of technology, where nothing from outside the car can come inside the car, and in some sense, from inside the car, you can just put your hand outside of the car and even bring it back in, based on the registered user. And I wish I could read this for you, but I've literally in other talks I've looked for the email and I can't find it. I just hope I have a copy of it somewhere, but Rasool is waiting by the school. His father is driving him, and a recent law has allowed cars to no longer be automated. And so, what happens is that Rasool is saying goodbye to this robotic friend, his robotic classmate. McKenna, I think I called. Pretty much, guys, it's a scene where Rasool's father comes and picks him up. He has a conversation with his father, and that's the whole memory. But in the context that's built behind it, Rasool is a kid in school. They have the first artificial robot entering the school and learning with the kids. So imagine Rasool, he has the first robot ever shared, and I named it in honor of, you'll see why later, but I named it Mechenna, spelled Mechenna. And it's kind of like my tribute in my science fiction to this scholar named Terence McKenna, and I'll tell you why. So what happens is that this robotic classmate enters the classroom, and the kids are there. It becomes recess, and it becomes recess, and the robot, is looking for plants in the yard. The robot is looking for a certain type of plant in the yard, and these kids bully this robot with like some futuristic trash can lid, you know? And so Rasool is just watching this, and the Rasool knows the robot doesn't feel pain, so he's not like reacting to it. But what happens is when he goes and sits in the car, where he's having a discussion with his father, and there's this long dialogue which no way I can remember accurately, but I'll tell you like the gist of it. Rasul uses this term, I remember writing this, robo-racially bullied. Robo-racially. And Rasul's father is talking to Rasul, and Rasul suddenly says this deep thing. He says, I don't understand why there's cruelty. It's such a simple thing that could not be here in the species. You know, something like this. And Rasul's father then shares a vision to him. His father's name is Bismillah. And I don't know, these were like names that I felt in the moment. Like there's chaotic movements in an artwork and there's ordered movements in an artwork. But this artwork is also something I've really written for myself to also read. You know, they say the best book to write is the one, the best book to read is the one you're gonna write, you know. Anyways, guys, what happens? This is where it's getting exciting in the chapter. By the way, McKenna, his robot friend, goes on being the leader of the robotic realms in the story, in the sci-fi novel. But check this out. What happens next? Rasul is in the car with his father. He says, I wrote some dialogue about him saying, why are people so cruel? Then his father shares a memory, shares something with Rasul. He says, Rasul, the time you were in your mother's womb, I got a dream. I saw a dream, and your mother had a dream, and I saw a vision, something like that. You know, oh sorry, I had a dream and your mother had a vision at the time you were being born, and it was the same dream. So the parents of Rasul, at the time Rasul was being born, both of them had the same vision. And what that vision was, I don't know how I wrote it, but I wrote it was as if Rasul was standing and there were these giant lights, standing above, you know. The dream is Rasul pretty much standing like with an audience of these giant lights, these giant white, like they're starlight white. You know, they're like glowing figures, these giants. Later on in the story, you're going to see who these giants are. Not in this chapter, though. So, what happens is Rasul's father says this to Rasul, says the vision both Rasul's father and mother got, you know, at the time of Rasul's conception. Guys, just a second. I'm trying to remember the exact. I don't think I can remember the exact dialogue, but this is the most unique thing I've done in character development in a story context. You know, I've written many stories. This is one of the most unique things I've done with a character. And so Rasul is this kid sitting in the passenger seat of this Chevy, and his father is telling him this story, and his father says, Rasul, you have, like, his father's pumping up Rasul for like this greater purpose, you know. And his father says, Rasul, you will free mankind, something, da da da. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. And Rasul says, Dad, I can't free mankind. And suddenly I write something very unique, that the 32nd dimensional self, future self of the future self of Rasul from the 32nd dimension of a certain sector, it's like this galactic general, this celestial general, speaks through Rasul. So Rasul channels his future self from the 32nd dimension of something I wrote, which I can't remember, you know? So imagine Rasul's father's driving the car. Rasul's future self comes and explains why Rasul's father, Bismillah, had this thing. Had this vision. What happens is that the future self says, Rasul, your son, this is where it's like a full explanation, where it says your son, it's his first lifetime as a human. And so he knows, he has this memory as a galaxy. So pretty much this character, Rasul, you don't know, the way I've written it in the story, he never fights. He never fights in the story. It's as if before he can fight, literally the world is his guardian, you know, as if the author of this book has given a command. This character is untouchable, you know. I really forget the dialogue, but Rasul says something to his father, and suddenly he comes back to the room, comes back into the car, into his conscious self, no longer as just like as his 32nd parallel, I don't know, future self, as I wrote. But there was something significant there, where it was as if like a collective archetype. There is a moment where this character in a later on chapter, which I'll just share the thought for it. Rasul meets this beast machine, this beast robot, this kind of programmed robot that is designed to literally be the archetype of the beast. And there is a scene where Rasul, this robot attacks Rasul, and there is something outside. That means without Rasul even needing to defend himself, something happens to the robot and it breaks. And there's this scene where Rasul gets the head of the robot, holds it in the air, and he just wills it, and the robot attaches. Do you know? And he changes the direction and the attention. Sorry guys, these are things that are so in my inner realms, and they're written with such a detail, and I don't have, like, I can't read it right now. But I'm kind of trying to share the ideas somehow so people can access the imagery of it. There's a lot of ways that you can see yourself as a character in the world. That's really what happens in new experiences. Sometimes we don't want to be conscious, we want to go through a journey and be conscious at certain points of it, you know. That means someone could perhaps like program a life in the future, and let's say there's this technology, the person goes into this suit, okay. I mean, in the future, really, people can work from home by just like wearing this helmet, and it's like this robot in the corporate office space doing everything they would do if they were in the office. Do you know, that would be the best way. That's the solution to automation. Robots that are working in the corporate space, but it's actually like people's minds from a home or wherever they're chilling, they can do the work. Do you know? I think this is a very crucial idea. But anyways, the I thought is an extraction, a moving extraction in the moment. If I don't say anything, if I don't move, who am I? That means everybody has free will in their inner realms. In your inner realms, you could visualize anything. But in the outer realms, the free will has to have a physical consequence, no? That means if somebody feels they have the free will to lift a cup, they have to physically lift the cup. Oh my God, the free will worked in the outer realms. You know? That's good. Incredibly warm coffee. Honestly, guys, what can I say? From one side of the coin, we're one giant existential event. From the other side of the coin, we are endless fragmented experiencers in accordance to the individualism of their bodies. So pretty much one side of the coin, singular void, other side of the coin, the multidimensionally infinite. You know, that means I always thought this idea of there's no way the person is going to heaven, or hell. Like because in some sense the person dies and their soul is resurrected. And from the religious Abrahamic traditions, the religious lens, it's like, you know, they have that perception. Because that's the thing. Like a Buddhist, imagine a Buddhist and, like, I don't know, Christian, Muslim, or, you know, Judaic tradition. It's like, you know what it is? It's literally like the Buddhist, the imagine a Buddhist was listening to um, uh, monotheistic persons. I mean, the thing is, Buddhism is technically, in a strange way, non-theistic. They're not monotheistic or polytheistic. Buddhism is like non-theistic. But I'll tell you this: it's like the Buddhists would listen to the monotheistic person and be like, okay, so you die, then you're resurrected once more, then you're judged, then you go somewhere, right? Now the Buddhist is agreeing, you know, until the first resurrection, but then there is more resurrections. There's endless incarnations, do you know? So you can say reincarnation is technically resurrection, but in the same room. Or I could say resurrection maybe is an interdimensional shift, but like I'm telling you, the notion of resurrection and reincarnation, they have an intersection. that after this current life, there is another awakening. So we all technically, all the billions of religious people on the planet, they believe that after the eyes close, they open again. But then where you go to, that's a question. It's as if like, from the religious mentality, it's not even a question of like, is there something after this or not? It's like, okay, there's definitely something after this, but where am I going after? For me, it's like to think about the concept of an afterlife doesn't make sense. There is this life, then there is another, you know? That means I feel that in some sense, death is death, but also life is life. So when you are alive, it's like we are the planet's eyes. And what must these eyes do? We are like, imagine like you won the lottery, but the gift was like an incredibly advanced evolutionary brain compared to all the species on this planet. Like we have to technically treat all the other species on this planet as our lesser inferior creature siblings, you know? Siblings of creaturehood, do you know what I mean? But that's the thing about nature, you know, sometimes it surpasses the very attempt at conception. So guys, I'm going to read for you something that I wrote in 2017 from this book called The Source of Language. And this essay is called Are Our Minds Open? And you might think for a second, like, here, I'm gonna, in case my accent is a bit blurry. So, are our minds open? We must develop in quotations strong cultures with the duty of clarity and the compassionate collective wisdom of the species. Strong cultures will be the catalysts and foundations for change. First, the person becomes self-aware, then the culture becomes self-aware, then the society becomes self-aware, then the nation becomes self-aware, then the world becomes self-aware, then the solar system becomes self-aware, then the galaxy becomes self-aware, then the world becomes self-aware to its natural state. Oh, excuse me, I read that wrong. I read a sentence. Then the solar system becomes self-aware. Then the galaxy becomes self-aware. Then the world becomes self-aware. Then the edge of conception and the inconceivable becomes self-aware. Then the moment returns to its natural state, once the whole moment is truly witnessed to be real as a whole moment. Once the lotus on your forehead has opened like the spark of a galaxy, through the authorization of the heart of hearts, there will be a transcendence of individual consciousness into collective consciousness through a self-dissolving remembrance. What this implies is that consciousness is beyond a changing state of reference. The attention to light is faster than the speed of light. The eyes of all types of governance must consider the inner dimensions and visions of man to be the inspiration of the outer. The self is made of senses. The self of selves that is the witness never had senses. What moves when you don't? How are you the remnants of a changing world when you are observing the change from a state where all localities are probabilities and potentially real? The mind is a fascinating aspect of this universe, made only to discover itself within all that is the reality of evolution. You are beyond evolution. That is how you know you are evolving. Is energy only present through matter, or does the world have more to tell? An unborn wisdom shall find you, and you shall be absolute before ideas ever had to be there. What whispers of insight will be passed on through the eons, guided by the grace of eternity? Stop living like a dying man and wake up to your moment as the eternal focus of the cosmos into the beauty and possibilities of individual manifestation. The source of language is an insight within ourselves. Externality is an internal phenomena. The internal phenomena is beyond location and the suppositions of a place to be. You have the guidance of the planet and the intuition of destiny. When a book becomes a mirror to your own mind, God is here and now. The intelligence of all intelligence is so intelligent that we never could not be. The body knows its destination. The mind needs to discover the true nature of its design. Study the growth of intelligence within all sectors of reality. Wherever you are as a being, self-awareness always serves. When two or more people look at the same thing, it can be said that there are multiple dimensions in one. What can truth say when silence kept it all? Once the external nature of reality has been contemplated, naturally the interest of the being would develop into and wonder about the true origin of intelligence. We're not only wondering about what is the source of the movement within our eyes, but within the eyes of all worlds. The moment is the great guide of all separate realities, bound to their own consequence of how the toes entered the water. The source of language has nothing to do with language. Language can be said to be the playful void endlessly language can be said to be the playfully void, endlessly growing imagination of God. Even though many consider all ideas are man-made, what does that mean for the idea of man, in quotations? Is the void too much to confront with glorious unknown awe? Could the moment be divine beyond you? How can you be a man before the concept of, in quotations, man has any meaning? Could you drive a car before the wheel was made? Most of our lives are lived through the intentions of self-created desires projected from a subjective past that wants to influence the objective future that it can never know, for the future changes the present as much as the past does. Is time a beautiful illusion? Destiny's dance moves are very multidimensional, but all basks in the oneness of the intelligence of your moment. Could a poet have thrown a telescope faster than Zeus's lightning back at the clouds before the revelation of dawn is the end of the sentence? Reveal dawn like the mistress of night. Is space a bottomless mystery? Function as natural presence and let go as an idea with any need to grab onto anything. When you believe in something, you are accepting the value of a certain range of imagery-based experience to be more valuable than other ranges of existential perception and sensitivity. However, because you have made a choice, all other possibilities simultaneously come about. Failure is a sign of success, for success cannot exist without the benchmark of failure. Your life is beautifully fascinating, and ideas were never in the driver's seat. Have you noticed parallel realities are only of interest to those who are first in a reality? The moment is too pure for words. I shall do no injustice. Silence is great wisdom. Is death alive? Should we discredit symbolism for never being able to replace the actual intensity of any direct experience? What is your idea on an idea? Can you feel emptiness opening its wings through paradise's greatest intention? As all skies realize they are one, are our eyes covered by ideology? Is the multidimensional vastness and infinitude of the mind properly acknowledged by society's terms and objective view? Are light bulbs being taken to the guillotine in a world of dim candles? Truth requires honor and trust to journey on through the generations and centuries. My children will one day read this book just to see they have only read their own minds. Greatness is within us all. Life is administered as one whole intelligence and activity. The intuition of all mystics shall roar again into the abidance with the greater intelligence of this natural sector of this universe. Before any case is closed, are our minds open? That means wonder about how you are already free before how you are not, you know? The poet Rumi says, your task is not to seek love, but to get rid of all the barriers that you have made against it, you know? That means look at how you don't know, and you will learn from how you know. You know, one thing I gotta mention this idea. Elon Musk, this entrepreneur, he shared this notion of even in a business, just to share this, re-emphasize this. This feedback loop is very important because when you are in the jungle, your attention to the environment is your feedback. Now, for a philosopher, it's as if the whole macrocosmic, how the macrocosmic event has been linguistically constituted, as designed, is feedback. So when people speak to me, when I was younger, I would just hear how they're a concept, but then I would actually wonder, how is this person looking at the world? And when I had that same curiosity with the man in the mirror, that's when you realize that's not when your life changes. That's when you realize your life is change. It's like, no way. Guys, there's this other chapter I'm going to read before I end off. The Great Engine of Time. And pretty much that thing is just have feedback loops as a sense of your attention being crystallized to how the environment is happening before even your inner realms touch it, you know? So this essay from the Source of Language, which I wrote again 2017, The Great Engine of Time. The great engine of time suggests that the current generations are looking at the patterns of past generations, but it seems past generations were always inspired by the future generations. Alright, to continue, guys. So if reality's focus is both from what is considered to be the past and present... Oh my god, I gotta read this from the beginning. Okay. May the winds of evolution find this moment. Alright, guys, I'm reading it from the beginning. The great engine of time suggests that the current generations are looking at the patterns of past generations. But it seems past generations were always inspired by future generations. So if reality's focus is both from what is considered to be the past and present is its future, then communication of the future to the present is only the only revelation of a dying man. Then the communication of the future to the present is the only revelation of a dying man. Just to make that clear. So if nature could communicate to you from the future, perhaps you would be your future self's memory. What this implies is that what this implies is that it is the abstract referential moment of time in our imagination that keeps it alive. Could knowledge and language be floating in empty space just like everything else? Do we exist in empty space? Could space or absence be beyond the intelligence of linear memory recognition? This implies that the meaning behind language is void until our eyes open from deep sleep. The mystery of creation is also simultaneously nature's clarity. Consciousness does not need an image hierarchy, rather sincere self-inquiry. Once a being has truly realized the one and only natural state, their whole reality shall be administered by the intelligence and vision of that newfound awareness. Imagine being a person back in the day and suddenly realizing the world is not flat and the sun is a gigantic star we are spinning around. The reality shifts in accordance to direct experience, which naturally is cultivated by the inspiration behind universal insight. From imagination, reality is extended and vice versa. The origin of multidimensionality is provided by the divinity of the void of nature. The transient universe may seem cruel, but the observer within is changelessly fearless. Alright, guys. Sorry about that. Got this. There was something. Anyways. The reality shifts in accordance to direct experience, which naturally is cultivated by the inspiration behind universal insight. From imagination, reality is extended and vice versa. The origin of multidimensionality is provided by the divinity of the void of nature. The transient universe may seem cruel, but the observer within is changelessly fearless. The inherent continuity within unity is the guidance of bliss beyond words. My life has been an interesting story, but I am beyond stories. Beyond the gaze of the lords of karma, you are eternity. The scientific community must integrate with the yogic and psychedelic communities. All minds must find one true presence of the moment. As multidimensionality is scientifically contemplated to be void, the laws of objectivity will fade into infinite subjectivism. The integrity of science is an integrative self-reflection of the origin of the universe in the now. Science is a mighty story, but who is the storyteller of conscious reality? Once the mind is open and quiet, have all clouds dissolved into the one sky? How big is the brain of the cosmos? The body shall align once the mind is open. The soul shall be free once the mind was always open. Value your life, for it belongs to the origin of the life of the cosmos. Ego brings anger. Clarity is natural. To witness enlightening eyes is a divine gift. And that's where the essay ends, guys, and so does this talk. Thanks for listening. I hope this episode has been helpful. Much blessings and namaste.